So a lot of people ask about interplanting, not succession planting, which means you take a crop out and you put another crop in, but interplanting, where you actually have one plant growing while you plant another plant in the same space. Well, I do a lot of that. I think I've had a video before about my daffodils, and I put in the lateris with them, and that's going to be permanent. But in a space that's not going to be permanent, what can you do with that? Well, I have a ranunculus bed and an anemone bed in a raised bed with really good potting mix. So that's some high dollar area there, and I want to keep that going. So what I've done in there, as soon as my ranunculus and my anemones start to wind down, which we had a very, very hot spell this season in the spring, and they started to melt. So at that time, I started to interplant. So I took my smaller gladiolas, the nanus, and I put them in between the rows where I had my ranunculus or my anemones. Let me just show you. So here you can see the ranunculus, and there's a lot of space in between there. These didn't fill out as much as I had wanted them to, so I decided to go ahead and about 2 weeks ago interplant my gladiolas. You can see them right there, and they are already coming up nicely. Now, like I said, this is the smaller variety because the bulbs are smaller, so they didn't hurt the roots of the ranunculus. And I've stopped right here because I want to succession plant these because I don't want all of them to come on at the same time. So in 2-week intervals, I plant them. Now, here's another place where I did some interplanting. These are lilies, and you see the shadow that the lilies are casting? Well, in between these lilies, I planted calla lilies. And by the time the calla lilies get up, these lilies will be ready to be picked. And then I'll put like a shade cloth over top of them like you have here to keep them cool. But until then, as long as these taller lilies are in here, they will keep them nice and cool. And they will all grow very nicely together because they have the same needs. They're both in the lily family, and they're both like a corm or a bulb. So they're easy to interplant. Now, if you have bigger bulbs, then it gets a little more difficult to interplant with corms. But I'm pretty sure it can be done if you think ahead of time and put spacing a little bit larger. Like you can see here in these anemones, it would be a little bit hard to do. I mean, I do have some space here where these have already melted, but when I first started, these were pretty full, and I would not have been able to do that in this bed. See, these were all like this until they started to melt from the heat. And it's a shame because they had just started to come on and get some size to them. And then all of a sudden we got 90 degrees, and that was it for these poor little babies. They can't handle that. So that's a little bit on interspacing or interplanting. And also a little bit on succession planting, I guess. So till next time.